The Secret of the Conde Hermanos, Chapter 24. You are muy triste, Gwendolina, Rogelio said somberly on the first day back to work in the new year. The day before, Gwen had gone to Clarissa's baptism in the Windmill Chapel at the nearby meditation garden, and everyone from the New Year's Eve gathering had been in attendance, with the exception of Alice. This was owing to the fact that Eduardo had bought tickets in advance for a Sunday afternoon concert given by Paco de Lucia at the Wiltern Theater in Midtown Los Angeles, and afterward they had plans to dine and dance the night away at El Cholo. That very morning, Paloma, Jack, Clyde, and Elspeth had set off for Carmel, and now alone again in the house with Blaise and Bartholomew, Gwen had had a chance to review the situation, and it was not a pleasant task. "No, I'm fine, Rogelio," Gwen answered, feigning optimism as best she could. "You cannot lie to me, mujer," Rogelio admonished gently, "for I can see it in your eyes. What makes you sad, hermanita? Maybe I can help." "Well, I did have a depressing revelation on New Year's Eve, I'm afraid. And I'm not sure what to do next," Gwen admitted tentatively. "Did you follow my instructions for New Year's Eve?" Rogelio asked, arching an eyebrow. No, I didn't. I was too upset to remember, actually. For Rogelio had given her strict orders to eat 12 grapes when the clock struck 12 and to encircle her house with a generous sprinkling of sugar. "That's part of the problem," he explained. "But no se preocupes, mujer. We can still do something about it. Come with me." And he motioned for her to follow him through the rear door of the store and into the alley behind. "Let us write down a New Year's wish together," he said, taking out a pen and paper. "And you do not have to tell me your wish, because it is the same as mine. We both wish for something very scarce on the face of the earth." And with that he wrote only 2 words on the paper before rolling it up and setting it on fire with a match. The 2 words, Gwen had clearly seen, were true love. As the paper was caught in the gentle wind that was coming in from the Pacific Ocean that morning, it skirted along the asphalt and sent the ashes scattering in all directions. "Rogelio, do you ever lose faith?" Gwen asked desolately as she watched the glowing embers of the paper come to a rest on the pavement half a block away. "In what, Gwendolina? In God? Never," he told her firmly. "All right, then. But what about your fellow man?" she persisted. "What about them? God is the only one who counts, mujer. And when we have problems, there's only one thing we must not forget to do," he said, pausing for dramatic effect, and then saying quietly and gently, "Pray to God, Gwendolina. Pray to God." "I always take your advice, maestro," she said, feeling somewhat comforted. "I'll see what I can do." On Gwen's next day off, which happened to be the Thursday of that same week, she walked down to the meditation garden with a mind to heed Rogelio's advice in an atmosphere designed specifically for that purpose. As she sat down on a stone bench overlooking the small natural spring-fed lake with its calm surface skimmed by dragonflies and its lotuses in bloom, she began to formulate in her mind the exact nature of her prayer. What was it exactly that she wanted to say? What was it that so deeply troubled her? Her mind, she realized, was as cloudy as the reflection of the sky, which was refracted on the surface of the lake that spread before her. Certainly, a large part of her dilemma was how to tell Alice the truth about Eduardo Candelas. How did one pray about that? How did one begin to approach God about such things? Was God really interested? And as these questions swirled in her mind like the mottled koi who swam in hypnotic eddies near the surface of the lake, an odd thing happened. A diminutive and dainty black cat leapt gracefully out of nowhere onto the stone bench on which she sat and proceeded to further insinuate herself directly onto Gwen's lap, where she made herself immediately at home. Yes, I suppose you're right, Gwen observed, not a little surprised by the slight feline's sudden and forceful appearance. The direct approach is usually best. But no sooner had she spoken than the playful cat leapt to the ground and scampered off a short distance away, only to turn back as if beckoning Gwen to follow. So, shall I go off with you and just forget all about prayer for today? Is that the idea? She called to the cat, who simply ran a little further along the path and then turned to Gwen again and waited. Evidently, Gwen thought as she arose and resolutely followed the seductive black cat, who led her to the end of the path and then made a sharp right turn down several stone steps, only to turn right again before coming to a full stop. Are we there? Gwen asked as she found herself suddenly encircled by a small garden of tuberose, in the middle of which sat a spiritual wishing well, for that was what the sign above it read. She fished for some coins in her change purse and tossed them in, wishing fervently for a remedy for her dilemma, and then went to sit beside the seemingly satisfied cat, who had leapt atop another stone bench, not far from the well. As Gwen did so, she noticed something on the ground, tasseled and laminated. What could this be, she wondered aloud, and read the message that was printed thereon, not without a little consternation, for it seemed to address her present dilemma quite specifically, even though the words must have been written nearly half a century ago by an Indian yogi whose name she could never pronounce, and who had originally founded the meditation garden. She felt as if he spoke them directly to her. Like most sage advice, it was simple, albeit deceptively so. God heard her prayers, it said, and at some point in time always answered her. She just had to keep watching all the time, and the many ways in which he responded would become apparent. So is that all there is to it? She asked the little black cat, who leapt suddenly off the bench, ran up the stone steps, and back down the path until it disappeared from view. And then, suddenly, Gwen found the perfect words with which to pray. Upon arriving home later that morning, she found an urgent message from Helena on her voicemail, asking her to please call immediately. Helena's news proved to be rather unexpected. Alice has been terribly sick in bed for the past 2 days. Blaze and I have been over there bringing her soup and making her tea, but the nature of the illness is more emotional than anything else. Why? Gwen asked guardedly. What happened? She found out Eduardo is married, Helena said matter-of-factly. And not only that, he also has a married son. And get this, a grandson no less. Apparently his wife went to Mount St. Helens, where they lived for 6 weeks over the Christmas and New Year's holiday, and she just got back. So the whole thing's over. That's ghastly, Gwen commiserated. How did poor Alice find out? He told her himself, Helena said bitterly, over a pitcher of margaritas at El Cholo. And what did she do? Gwen asked, fearing the worst. She took a cab home in utter devastation and called me in the morning, Helena explained. I'm so very sorry, Gwen offered sympathetically. Will she be okay? Of course she will, Helena assured her. This is just a temporary state of shock. But you know Alice, she's as free as the wind. Her grandmother in Argentina left her a substantial inheritance years ago. In a day or two she'll probably be on the next plane to Paris. We'll give her my best, Gwen said with a sigh of relief as she hung up the phone and took pause at the unexpectedly prompt and astonishing power of prayer.